Good morning, everyone. This is EricaSwensonElliott, and it is Tuesday, April 6, 2021. Today, I'm going to talk about the theme of stillness and accessing the still small voice within. And when we do that, we find ourselves and are able to connect, create, and expand with others. So I'm using my experiences as a template for those of you that are starting or you're on your journey somewhere within to find out who the heck you are. And you are probably just as surprised as I am. So the person I want to talk about today is Parmenides, who I discovered he's the predecessor to the Greek philosophers. I first found him in this book, Reality by Peter Kingsley, who's a mystic philosopher. You can see it's pretty thick, so it's one of those books that you kind of read over time. It's interesting how you end up connecting with ideas and people when you travel. So one of the things I think we all do is we gravitate and travel to places that for some reason our spirit, our psyche, it wants to be there. And you might not be the one making the plans, but someone's making the plans, maybe a higher source than yourself. So when Keith and I first got married, and that's what I write about this Love and Taxes, is it's business stories, but it's a hybrid. It's also our true story about how we came together. I'd been working so much inside of Big Four public accounting and not being allowed to see the light of day for years. So I had not rarely, but I'd never got beyond the Caribbean. And this is back in the day before you needed a passport to go to the Caribbean. So this is like 2005, we're on our honeymoon, and he took me on a cruise that started in Rome, Italy. And that's definitely a city I feel like I had to have been at a lot of times in the past before. So when we were there, it was weird. I didn't even believe that there was previous lives at the time we were there. I'm like, this is like deja vu stuff. So the next day we leave Rome and we were on a cruise ship, which I'd never been on even boats really. So I'm like, but I knew I wasn't going to be seasick. It just felt like second nature to me. So I was so excited. And then we woke up and we were down on the Amalfi Coast. And there's like these huge cliffs that you're looking up onto. And you've seen photos of them from the water now, I'm sure. But at the time, I hadn't even seen those photographs. So it was just so beautiful. And it wasn't until a few years later that I found this book by Peter Kingsley. And I found out that Parmenides was actually living right around there. And I think it was maybe right before Plato and Aristotle. He was who Plato calls the father. So I have to go brush up on the details of this, but basically that was his predecessor. So it was a Greek colony that was over by Sicily and the Amalfi Coast on the southwest corner of Italy. And he had started a mystery school to preserve and protect the mysteries. And basically his whole concept was everything's within, like we're all connected, which we all kind of say today as a trite thing. We don't act that way. We don't act like we're all connected, but we say that a lot, including myself. But that was Parmenides was teaching people how to do that. And how did he do that? He basically had people go into a cave or underground, and for 3 days, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? Resurrection in 3 days. So that whole thing is actually a mystery school teaching of the times, and probably before that. So you would basically cut off all your, inputs. So just think about us today, right? Cell phones, TV, everything coming at us, and like that, cell phones coming at us. And Parmenides had, go lay down there, no real water, food, basically go into kind of a coma type state. And you finally can go within and you can connect. So it was very, very powerful. He wrote that back then they did everything. So we've been told like we can only do these little tiny specialist things and oh, you're good at this. Not true. We're all very powerful, complex souls, quantum souls. And in Parmenides' case, besides being a philosopher and a prophet and a politician, and they also were poets. So that's how they wrote. Now, part of the reason why I think they wrote in poetry was because there's something in our brains, and there's different studies being done about this, that we kind of remember things in a narrative, poetic format, and it becomes part of our DNA. So like things that are being passed down, like we intuitively know, it's because somehow our brains are, as humans, are programmed to remember things that way. So I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to just read this 2 pages out of Peter Kingsley's book, and this is page 47. And so you kind of get a sense of, Peter does a really beautiful job of, this was his life's work, of explaining and breaking down these poem fragments. One of the reasons I reconnected with this book is I'm going to come, and this is all about how when we work together and we stay connected, iron sharpens iron, right? We make ourselves better. So I've been promoting Michael Jaco because I'm a member, subscribing member of the Optimized Tribe, and it's a group, a closed forum where you can access data and other speakers. So Michael and Jay Campbell together created the Optimized Tribe, so you can have a more vibrant community than what we're allowed to talk about in public, apparently. So this group, you can end up kind of speaking your mind and no one's going to cancel your channel. So one of the topics that I read in Michael's book was about Parmenides. And so his books related to the intuitive warrior, he dissects a lot of his past lives. And if I'm remembering correctly, Michael remembers being connected to Parmenides' life, if not Parmenides himself. So it was interesting that that was something that I read 10 years ago and has affected my life. And here it is, I'm part of this tribe, and this is something that's influencing his tribe as well. So, okay, so here's this, that we're going a little deep here, which is good because we're all very deep people that we tend to deny and like to stay up here on the surface where it's a little more comfortable. So today we're going a little deeper. And the moment you accept that this may be the case, you are already trapped. And what is he talking about? As a matter of fact, Plato and the other Greek philosophers who used to put so much effort in trying to make sense of Parmenides' teachings, they liked using one particular word to sum up Parmenides' understanding of reality. And remember, this is like the guy, the predecessor before Plato, down there on the Amalfi Coast, where we all like to go party at Capri, or at least pretend we've been there, or show off, our t-shirts from Capri. So back to the point, the word was, and this is a Greek word, heisha, which I know I'm not saying right, which means stillness. There are no coincidences here. We have gone far beyond the level of coincidence, and the implication of all of this evidence is quite straightforward. For Parmenides, it's through stillness that we come to stillness, and through stillness, we come to understand stillness. And through the practice of stillness, we come to experience a reality that exists beyond this world of the senses. So we can't get beyond the world of the senses until we're still and we're shut down. And the moment you accept that this may actually be the case, you are already trapped. The evidence all points to these conclusions, but for reasoning to accept them would be for it to accept its own destruction, because reasoning is based on thought, and stillness is the end of thought. So in our busy world today, it's hard to do that. How do you go within when we got cell phones ringing and the TV's blaring and buzzes every time someone texts you or there's a notification, right? So we have to figure out ways to remove all those distractions because we can't go deep within when that's happening. So we talked about the last couple of days, I've highlighted these courses, which is ways to go deeper within. And Michael's worked on his courses for years, and he's taken his experiences as a Navy SEAL, where he taught courses to other people coming into the Navy SEALs. And I think he taught courses in the CIA as well before he retired. So that whole style, he's now like embedding everything that he learned in his life, and he has a very robust platform. I am starting to do that with my platform. I'm going to end up, I'm using the technology tool Thinkific, and that's my university's Endeavor University that's built off the Thinkific platform. And then you can see here that Michael's is built off the Teachable platform. So all of you listening out there, you all have incredible experiences and knowledge that can be shared. So there's many ways to be able to share this. I just figured out how to connect my digital course content into my Shopify store. And I'm starting to, which is here where I'm like actually selling products as well, which is, connecting all the dots and bringing them all together into one place. So I'll be able to, instead of having to go to another page, it'll be, again, like you can buy the courses at the same time while you're buying your water bottle. So this one is the one I'm going to focus on today, this Digital Warrior, World at Her Fingertips. So this was a new, it's like the shiny one. It probably doesn't show up that good in here, but it's 11 ounces, so it's a little tiny compared to my normal like 24 ounce bottle that I carry. But I do like how it looks. It's really a lot prettier. I have my signature logo on there. This is the stuff I've been working on. I put along the top up there, Digital Warrior, with the world at her fingertips. And this kind of to me goes back to the stillness thing, is that it's that balance, right? Like you can end up doing too much, and this is me, I get too busy doing too much stuff inside of the digital world. So, but then at the same time, that's a way to share communication with others. And why are we here if we're not here to share what we know and leave it behind, what we learned, because one day we're not going to be here too. And then people can go on and go forward with what we've shared. So if not when, dear Lord, when are you going to share it, right? So we all have to figure out how not to be afraid and let go of those fears. And one of the ways I do that is through meditation, which is the stillness, and also through mudras, which I add, and prayer. So those are my tools that I go within. I want to show you the book Reality that I was referencing. You can buy that on Amazon. I think at one point he was living in Asheville, which is weird because that was another connection for me. We spent a lot of time in Nashville, so that's where I keep coming back. Like there's no coincidences; everything's connected. So that book was very meaningful to me, and I think we talked about the technology tool, and then we talked about stillness. I think I want to read to you One more passage, and this is coming back to my growing up and being a little introspective today, is, and I write about this in my Love and Taxes book that you can find on my website and connects to Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So my dad was a minister, and this was in Philadelphia. So it was a very kind of tenuous kind of upbringing in that you lived in the parsonage, which was the house that was owned by the church. And we had enough money to like buy groceries, but we didn't have health insurance, and we didn't have a house, and someone gave us money to buy a car. So it was very tight, living. So, but we were like many people today. So I grew up that way. One of the things that made me feel was like I was going to make sure that I could take care of myself, which is how I went on this journey of becoming a CPA. I didn't want to have to be asking the people in the church to, buy a car for me. So I felt like that just felt too scary. Now, I think my pop, that's what I called him, and I think I named him that because I was the oldest because of Hop on Pop, Dr. Seuss books. So that's how he got his nickname, and then he became Pop when he became a grandfather. But my mom was, one of the great things about her is she made it feel special no matter how little you had. Like, so the meaning was in what you did have, and you appreciated what you have. So every Valentine's Day, for example, we would sit around the family dining room table, and there was 5 of us, so all 4 of us would say what we appreciated about the 5th person in the family. And we went around, and we started with one of us, and then so the thing that was kind of wild about that was it got very intense. So we went from being ticked off with each other and annoyed to going pretty deep and forgiving each other for our frustration. So it was a really good practice for me to continue, into my life today. So when you do that, it makes you stop and be still and appreciate what is around you and who is around you. Okay, so I'm going to read along that note. I'm going to read for our little tax thing today out of Love and Taxes, page 23. This is about my mom. So my first client consult and the 50-50 method. Listen to others and understand their fears. But often unknown to ourselves, we are quite born to do certain things. And I, Erica, was definitely born as a financial advisor. I just wasn't aware of it yet. My first accidental financial planning consultation happened when I was 12 years old. It was about 1981, and my dad was given an option in his minister's defined benefit pension plan to make a special election. He had a one-time chance to opt in to create an additional personal pre-tax contribution to his retirement fund from his modest, tiny paycheck. My dad could care less about this kind of stuff because he was like, God's going to provide. And I'm like, you gotta help God to provide. So Pop passed the buck to my mom, and my mom was really good with numbers, but she was downright terrified of making the wrong choice. She could clearly see that she would be taking away precious current dollars from our family's small monthly cash flow to fund a future retirement benefit. And what if she selected the wrong investments? And the future benefit was diminutive, tiny. In her mind, it was a Sophie's choice kind of moment. It would be all of her fault, her children starving to death presently, or she and Pop would be an undue burden on her children in old age. This time frame was the beginning of the death of future defined benefit plans, where companies were responsible to fund retired employees. As a child at that time, I had no clue. People were starting to live longer and companies starting to break up faster. Shareholders were clamoring for greater profits, and lifelong careers at one company were coming to a screeching halt. These company benefits were being offloaded onto individuals for self-funding, and no one knew what the heck they were doing. Today, people are familiar with terms such as saving for retirement and IRAs, but this was new, uncharted territory in 1981. There were no financial advisors for the little people. One day they walked out to their mailbox, pulled out the letter opener, and were apprised that they had 7 days to decide their future retirement funding. They were expected to brush up on exotic tax law language about pre-tax and after-tax elections and investment options. Battalions of lawyers wrote in microprint about the retirement world upended, as if you were an idiot if you questioned this golden opportunity to enrich yourself. Of course, being the present-day entrepreneur that I am, I must point out that defined benefit plans somehow do live on quite healthily in the public sector of government jobs. The regulators who tell the rest of us what to do are all buttoned up with lifelong benefits. Important but lower paying jobs such as teachers, firemen, and policemen come with some sort of pension. How do you think people stay often unhappily in this secure but lower paying job? It's that play on fear, the hook of the safety net of the pie in the sky future guaranteed retirement benefit. Unless, of course, people in charge of the pension fund abscond with it, such as the Teamsters Union did with the Drake's Cakes Fund, but that is a story for my next book. That particular day, I met with my mother in my dad's study where he wrote his sermons surrounded by his beloved books. Parallel, right? You remember the 70s pressboard wood paneling on the walls? Well, it lined the walls in our walkout basement of the split-level parsonage. And besides the damp, faint scent of mildewed books, I could smell my mother's fear. For an hour or two, we read aloud abstract technical terms about qualified pension money. And the more we read, the less sure Mom was. I had no idea what I was reading. I was just trying to figure it out. She was slowly becoming debilitated by fear, the deer in the headlights effect. It was a pivotal moment for me in my budding career of financial advisor. At that point, I knew that any decision was better than zero. If we did nothing, Pop would have no future opportunity to elect into this special deferral. And we had to do something. So that's when I came up with my 50-50 method that later, as an adult, I used many times when clients were stymied with indecision. Mom and I opted in and got the clock running. And then we selected a middle-of-the-road deferral amount, not the max, not the minimum. Then we picked a conservative investment choice for the deferred dollars. At least we picked something. Then we backed into the impact on their net monthly cash flow, and we revised the family budget. By the end of our session, my mother was laughing with relief. It was an important lesson for me. Fear kills. It is better to keep moving, don't freeze. COVID, whole year COVID, fear, right? The second big lesson I learned that day, I now term the 50-50 method. If you aren't confident in a future outcome, do not go all the way in. Do half. For example, not sure if you should buy a stock, just use half of your budget and buy 50% of what you could buy. Not sure if you should sell half to ensure you do not lose it all. And yes, it is simple advice, but it surprises me how often humans think only in black and white. Am I all in or am I all out? Try straddling the fence sometimes. It's a way to get your feet wet, test the waters, and yet not drown. 30 years later, this one pivotal investment decision was the difference maker in my parents' ability to buy their first and only home upon retirement. It was their down payment. So whatever it is that is natural to you to do, don't listen to other people, just do it. To this day, it is one of the most satisfying feelings for me to help alleviate fear and consternation in others' lives, bringing order out of financial chaos. So yes, I am a tax accountant. Your destiny will choose you. And that's the end of that chapter. The cool thing though is we all get to be many things, and it's just finding and connecting to figure out who you are is the first step in the process. So that's my template. Learn what you will from that, and I will see you next time. I'll figure out how to turn this thing off. Namaste.